So often we see movies where the villain and the hero are very similar. The biggest difference, however, is the villain wants to have his way and he's willing to sacrifice others and things that it might be accomplished. Whereas the hero is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good, that lives might be saved, that something great might be done. As I sit and ponder the sacrifice that Christ did for each and every single one of us, he never wavered. He never wondered what it was that he was supposed to do. He was certain that it needed to be done. And he went to the cross to be crucified, to die, that we might have a chance at life everlasting. So I pose this question: what are you willing to sacrifice then, that you might achieve the purpose, the expected end that God has established for you? Now, I know you might be saying, that guy, why are you giving us such a deep question? Why are you thinking like this? Well, if it didn't hit home for me first, if it wasn't that I had to understand what I was willing to sacrifice, that my relationship with Christ would go from where it was to where it should be, where it ought to be. That relationship had to be the most important relationship in my life. What was I willing to sacrifice to get it to that place, to get it to that point where he could use me as he chose to use me, lead me where he wants me to go, and I would follow. He would say and I would hear and understand. And there had to be a willingness to sacrifice things, time, that I might focus and get in line with what he has called me to do. So I sit here and I ask you again, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to give up unnecessary TV for a season, that you might focus on what you're doing or what you're called to, or feeding the passion that you've been given? What if your talent is only mediocre, but are you willing to spend time getting to know it, getting to hone it, seeking after God the more, maybe taking classes? Are you willing to sacrifice time with your kids now and your family, that later on you might have the time and the freedom that you desire? Or maybe you're working on building a YouTube channel and you're kicking fear in the face, but what are you willing to sacrifice that you can spend the time learning the systems, learning the way that it works, doing the research, doing all that is needed to move forward in it, not getting discouraged, not worrying about all the obstacles that might be before you? What are you willing to sacrifice that you can live out the purpose that you're made for? Each and every one of us is made with a purpose, bought with a price that we couldn't have afforded to pay on our best day. What are you now willing to sacrifice, that your relationship with Christ is the most important, that the purpose that he has made you for is more important than the other things that are going on around you? And what are you willing to give up that it might be achieved in your life, that the lives that are supposed to be affected by the things that you are doing will be affected because you're doing it and not letting fear win any longer? You've dealt with failure time and time again. What are you willing to sacrifice in your mind? What's holding you back from getting to the point where you are free to do as he has called you to do, to be the epistle read of men, that vessel of honor that he's made you to be? What are you willing to sacrifice that you might achieve what he's intended for your life? What are you willing to sacrifice?